Canes fans, welcome in to this edition of a very joyous Canes Inside Live instant reaction. Miami knocks off Texas A&M. We will get into the game, but D-Money, obviously everyone right off the bat here, looking at the end of the game there, right, with Kam Kinchens and his very serious, scary incident that happened there at the end. I understand you have a bit of an update.
Well, listen, I'm not a doctor. I mean, I'm seeing what you guys are seeing and then talking to people as well around the program. And everybody seems to be saying, he's okay. Obviously, it's a serious situation, but a huge sense of relief from the people I'm talking to. Cristobal, you heard him in the post game, either QAM and the press conference. Both times he said, looks like it's okay. And the players, same thing. James Williams said Cam was trying to come back at the game and play. He was disappointed he missed the end of it. So that's the biggest news of all. I've walked that state. I've had a lot of bad walks from the field, to the parking lot. This was one of the worst because of what happened right at the end. And then, to hear it looks like it's going to be okay. A huge relief to everybody, and allows us to breathe a huge sigh of relief. Cam, you talk about All-American. He's an All-American player. He's like the definition of an All-American because he does everything right. He presents himself like exactly what you want out of someone. Hurricane. Anybody. I mean, he is just a model kid, and obviously praying for him. But the news has been good since it happened, so that's a good thing. And now a lot to celebrate on the football side, including him, who was awesome as we would have expected.
Yeah, very grateful for that outcome, which obviously still hasn't been made official yet, but everything we're hearing is trending in the right direction. There. Canes fans, we appreciate everyone's support who's on this live right now, already at just about 100 people after this huge win. Like and subscribe, like this video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. But man, D, I mean, this is right off the bat when you and I just got on right before the live. What you told me is this feels different. So if you want to just get into that a little bit.
Well, first of all, my preseason hype podcast might last for more than a couple of weeks. Usually it's obsolete after week 2. A lot of that stuff still stands, so that's refreshing. This was a huge game, and we could talk about the waves, but I think you had two programs that had invested so much in trying to be good, desperation to be good. Texas A&M had the biggest recruiting class in history 2 years ago. The money they've been spending on coaches is astronomical. Obviously, the money we spent. Someone asked, did we not go to the game? Yeah, we were there. Just got home.
We're there. We're just trying to give you as instant reaction as we can.
Yeah, I came home. Kids are being put to bed.
The same. Rock and Rant said we actually did. Yes, we did get probably lucky with traffic. I actually stopped and got something to eat on the way home. So
yeah, I almost got in a fight on the way out. I probably should have been better for karma purposes. But anyways. So Texas A&M and Miami are two programs that have invested. It's a desperation to be good, and they've spent that way. And this game was going to tell, one program was going to feel like they're back, and they finally got over that hump, and the other program was going to feel like they were never going to come back. It was so much more important than an unranked team playing whatever, the 22nd ranked team or whatever it was, because of the amount that both programs have put in. So for Miami to not just win the game, but really to be clearly the better team, despite all kinds of unforced errors, the confidence level coming out of a game like that could not be higher. And for Texas A&M, they got a lot of problems. But for Miami, you've received validation of your quarterback. You've received validation of your offensive line trenches philosophy. Some validation for both coordinators. Dawson, we can get into all that. And then, Guidry going against Petrino, who's been a terror for Miami. And really the culture, when you look at the tackling, the resilience, the ability to bounce back after just doing everything wrong in the first 5 minutes. I think Bud Elliott of 247 of the Cover 3 podcast, he had a tweet, after the first 5 minutes, like, oh, you could tell who the better team is after 5 minutes. And he was right. But, of course, he was talking about the wrong team because, he didn't know what he was talking about. So that game validated a lot. There's still a lot to be done. But you have to feel like the goals that were set in program building are closer to being met based on what you saw.
I have a name for you, Jaden Davis. I mean, 3 tackles for loss, man. I don't know what the official numbers are, but the plays that guy made, again, he wasn't the flashiest transfer, right? Coming over from Oklahoma, he's not 6', 6'1". He's not running a 4.3, low 4.4. Played a lot of football in the Big 12, has played a lot of good receivers. And I think people, they say, well, the defenses are terrible in the Big 12. What are the offenses looking like? And what are the offenses looking like that he's facing? So he comes out today and makes multiple impactful plays.
And he's someone that wanted to be a Hurricane out of high school. A lot of people thought he should have been a Hurricane out of high school. Miami did not recruit him. So that right's been wronged in a lot of respects. And the form tackle on that fumble was unreal. I thought that the corners in general had the matchup that everybody was watching as a mismatch, and they showed up. The Corey Couch also played really well. Daryl Porter. So that matchup was a major question mark. And I think, look, obviously they made some plays, but you're talking about this guy throwing 53 passes and only putting up 336 yards, 2 INTs. So corners stepped up huge. Obviously, Lance Guidry put his guys in position to succeed. When plays were made, tackles were made. So even if they made a good play, Texas A&M, it did not become a catastrophe. And that's not something that we have seen in recent years. We saw at the opening game, that was Miami, Ohio. Now against 5 stars, they're bringing these guys to the ground. Whether it's a great play by the defense or a good play by the offense, it does not become a catastrophe due to broken tackles. And James Williams, someone I feel like I'm an apologist for James Williams because he's so polarizing. And he got away with a couple that could have been penalties towards the end that I thought they were going to call him on. But tackling, ability to cover ground. There was one play, it was a short pass, and it was a 3rd down short pass, and he just closed distance in an absolute instant and made the tackle. So happy for him to have that success. That targeting was total BS. Good, good to see him not get called on that. The refs were absolutely horrible. I think, we're talking about all the people that are MVPs of this game, and there's a lot. I want to focus on the LVPs, the least valuable players, and I'm voting for the refs and the DJ. We scored that touchdown to Jacoby George, biggest moment in Canes, probably since Bandy's INT, and the guy's playing La Vida Loca by Ricky Martin. So the refs and that guy need to go back to the lab and regroup because they were horrible. But, a lot of everybody else wearing orange and green was terrific.
And it's crazy, right? Because we've been hyping up the O-line, which gave TVD all day to throw today, right? We're talking about the run game the last couple months, right? And everyone's waiting for the downfield passing game. And I think Shannon Dawson, TVD, and the main receivers really silenced a lot of people tonight.
Listen, your guy, Jim Nagy, who you know well, head of the Senior Bowl, former NFL personnel guy forever, he said that this might be the best offensive line in the country before the season. And he said, they went from being terrible last year to now they might be the best offensive line in the country. The last 2 games, why can't they be that? Right? I'm watching, I turned it off now, but I'm watching Bama, teams like that. Why can't Miami be the best offensive line in the country? They're big as anybody. They're athletic as anybody. They have a coach that has coached at that level.
They took Bama's starter, at one of the positions who was their first team all conference guy.
They got guys on the bench, that could play and that have played in unbalanced lines. So why can't this be the best offensive line in the country? Now, I'm not saying, look, they got to play the whole year, but can they be that based on what I saw today? I haven't seen quarterback had that much time in Miami since Ken Dorsey in 2001. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. If anybody has seen against a real team with 5-star defensive linemen, a quarterback had that much time in Miami. I have not seen it. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It did not happen. It was consistent from the beginning to the end of the game. They were completely dominant as pass blockers in this game, and you saw the results with TVD throwing the ball.
And look, there were a couple big drops that happened, right? That we didn't see that in the first game, right? But the receivers, all in all, outside of those miscues, stepped up and made game-winning plays, if we're being honest.
Big time.
Third down chain movers, yards after the catch, that we have not seen from a receiving core recently from Miami.
No doubt. And just think about last year Texas A&M game, which was brutal to watch for everybody. Okay, you have Restrepo healthy. That makes a huge difference, obviously. Restrepo, I put it in the chat. He might be one of the best Hispanic skill position players of all time when it's all said and done. We're disqualifying Hernandez for the serial murder. You mentioned Tony Gonzalez. That was a good one.
And then Anthony, the other from the Colts, who
Gonzalez, yeah, he's Cuban too.
He was a first round pick, yeah.
Well, but listen, Restrepo does a lot, and so he's just such a stud. I love Restrepo. The play on Brashard's touchdown, you watch Brashard's touchdown. Restrepo just destroyed the punter, and there were a couple plays where we actually the play was schemed for Restrepo to be the lead blocker. One of them didn't work for whatever reason, but it wasn't because he missed a block. But they're scheming plays with him as the lead blocker because they have so much faith in what he does. Watch the replay and you'll see. So, love Restrepo. You didn't have him. Colby Young, completely different player now that he's in shape. He's had time to adjust to the college level, going from JUCO. Lost the weight. You saw the speed. He's a really good player. And then Jacoby George, who's had maturity issues in the past, up and down. He was even a little up and down today, but that catch at the end and what he did throughout the game, you could have had 4 touchdowns. Just a really, really big performance and resilient too, because that drop punt, he really could have gone in the dumps, but he kept coming back and then closed it out. So that's huge for his confidence. Again, I use the word validation for the work that he's put in. And then Isaiah Horton, we can't go without him. Yep. That was a huge play going deep. After last week, they were saying, can Miami throw deep? Is it just dink and dunk? No, that's what Miami, Ohio was playing. That's how they were playing us. Texas A&M, SEC team, tried to challenge us a little bit. Horton ran right by him. Perfect pass by TVD. Horton's a guy that they have very, very high hopes for. Missed a lot of camp with injury. Again, had some of the inconsistencies of Jacoby George, maybe off the field, just locking in maturity stuff, nothing bad. But you saw
that's
play.
Depth. But that's depth. I mean, that's if you're a Canes fan, right? How long has it been since? All right, you understand that Restrepo, Colby Young are your guys right now, right? But you're excited about the guys behind them, and you can still have a role for an Isaiah Horton who goes deep. I mean, when his number is called upon, what a catch! And again, not just falling down, which we've seen a lot from receivers in the past few years. As crazy as it sounds, it's like a fundamental thing, right? But he goes on and he scores the touchdown, right? So awesome moment for him. The way they use A.J. Allen, I thought was very interesting at the running back position, right? He really didn't see touches in the first half, but that's where the depth comes in. He's fresh legs in the third, fourth quarter there, and he had some big plays.
Yeah, and a lot of split back too. Just watching it, you saw a lot of times we had 2 backs split. So that was interesting. And look, we're bearing the lead a little bit here because we're talking about these offensive players. TVD. I know you had mentioned, and you're just reporting what you hear, that the scouts wanted to see what TVD was about. They were not sure yet. You watch a game like this, and the efficiency, the production, obviously had a lot of time, but the accuracy, the ability to bounce back from drops. One thing about TVD that he gets criticized a lot is he's not the most vocal leader. He's not like a fiery kind of guy. The flip side of that is he is very steady. And Miami had a lot of mistakes early. They were not his fault at all. And really throughout the game with the drops, stuff that nothing to do with him. And he remained steady and continued to play and had just a phenomenal game. And one thing I want to mention, couldn't see this on TV, but being in the stadium, the last touchdown to Jacoby George, which was a perfect pass, I mean, one of the biggest plays we've had in years. I was watching him. He didn't react at all. Usually sometimes you see the quarterbacks run out like, touchdown, running, going crazy, let's go, all that. Van Dyke threw that pass, and he just walked out. Like, he was not – he could see there was to be a touchdown, but it wasn't like, like he was expecting it. So the calm demeanor, that's him. And I thought it really helped stabilize the team. And then just the performance itself was outstanding. So love TVD. Alabama was wishing they offered him triple what they offered him because he is a big-time quarterback.
Shout out to the 330 plus that are on this live right now. If you don't subscribe to the channel already, do so. We have these live shows we do these instant reactions after the games, but we also have live shows every Thursday and then our weekly podcast as well. So appreciate everyone's support. Like this video and subscribe. Offense, obviously putting up 48 points against this team was huge. Defensively, they were put in terrible positions. Special teams, that's a whole discussion that we need to have. But obviously, they put the defense, with their backs against the wall pretty early on.
Yeah, but then at the same time, they had the great kick return and then a 50-yard field goal. So up and down, I feel confident about that unit going forward. There's coachable stuff, but you're absolutely right. They put the defense in tough situations. And this is Bobby Petrino. This guy's killed Miami historically, right? And the fact that you have an NFL quarterback really for Texas A&M, I think Weigman's a dude, man. He was awesome from my standpoint because he was getting crushed, hit every single time, and stood in there, delivered some strikes. So you have a great quarterback, great receivers, and Bobby Petrino matching up, and Guidry was able to consistently match up. Some penalties, some obviously tough special team situations, but look at 6.3 yards per attempt for Connor Weigman. I'm pronouncing his name a million different ways, but 6.3 yards per attempt with 2 INTs. That's getting it done. 3.3 yards rushing for Texas A&M per carry. So really, the ability to stop them, and then the secondary stepping up like they did. The defense is legit, man. Guidry, we heard all year how good he was, and I think this showed what he can do. And Guidry's never been at this kind of level, right? So Guidry's like, people have something to prove. Guidry, he's not Kevin Steele, who's been good forever and been at the top. He really is proving what he's about now. And this game is one really, maybe the stats don't totally show how good he was. The tackling has gotten better. You're not seeing, how many busts were there where you said, wow, this guy's wide open? Sometimes there was a blitz and they picked it up and they made a great throw. That happens. But it wasn't like miscommunications and just a total mess. By the way, shout out to everybody that said hi to me and Pete at the game.
Yeah.
A ton of Canes Inside fans there. Love the support, man. And also shout out to the Garcia brothers. I told them I'd say this on the podcast because they had a great thought, which is, what's Jeremiah Smith thinking? I know he wasn't there at the game, but Jeremiah Smith saw these receivers all eating. And Jeremiah Smith, remember, his cousin is Geno Smith. Geno Smith was coached by Shannon Dawson. When Shannon Dawson got hired by UM, Geno Smith was tweeting about it. So we'll talk more about Dawson because I thought he was awesome. Who didn't, right? He kicked ass. But Dawson was Geno Smith's coordinator at West Virginia, and Geno Smith loves him. So Geno Smith sure has been in Jeremiah Smith's ear like, yo, this guy is legit. And then to see it come to fruition, not just with Jeremiah Smith, but really anybody watching this game from a recruiting standpoint, now that you've seen it happen, it's a whole new perspective of Miami. I think you're going to see Miami's offensive recruiting with this class and then the next class really skyrocket because it's one thing to think, hey, they might be better next year. But when you saw what they did last year, and that's your last vision of them, you really have to see it change to truly buy in. And I think that's something that people saw because Dawson was scheming guys wide open. He was being efficient. Really, the play to Jacoby George, that touchdown was a beautiful call. And
they open up the playbook, man. After all these years, they finally open up the playbook, right? Everyone is asking for it. Right off the bat, they want to see the downfield passing attack, and everyone says, "Oh, well, they don't want to show too much." Well, they were slinging it all over the place today.
Listen, in the offensive line, it makes everything a lot easier. Shout out to John Ruiz, man. The guy talk about money well spent on those offensive linemen. I hope he gets through whatever he's going through right now because watching that offensive line with guys like Cohen and Lee and Malagoa and Rivers, man, what a studly performance from him. That's a good place to spend your money on the offensive line because everybody else is going to look better because of that, and they're going to be steady. They're not going to be as up and down as maybe some other guys, less character stuff. So to me, spending money on offensive line, you're seeing that, and bringing in a guy like Cristobal and Mirabal, where that's their bread and butter, you see. I mentioned validation earlier. It's validation of that approach because now when you have a dominant offensive line, your quarterback throws 5 touchdowns. Your offensive coordinator looks like a genius. Your receivers are all improved. your running game has to be respected. You're not taking the negative plays that we've seen for the last 20 years. So that unit really elevated everybody, including Dawson, who also did his own thing and was outstanding.
It's just crazy though, because looking at the box score, everyone expecting going into this game, talking about the run game, Miami's going to pound the ball, throw it when they need to. You really only had 22 rush attempts. You're taking Tyler Van Dyke's 2 rush attempts out of the equation, and then you had 30 pass attempts. I mean, that's not what A&M probably expected going into this game either.
And then also, again, I have to watch it back. It's one thing to watch it in the stadium, and then you don't see it, the replays. But I'd imagine that Texas A&M was a bit worried about what Miami was going to do in the running game and concerned about it and wanted to challenge TVD. Obviously, he responded. But that's complementary football. When you have the ability to run the ball and the ability to pass the ball and pass protect. So I'm not sure. Look, Miami, look at the stats. 3.2 yards per carry, 77 yards. Obviously, that's not what Miami wants going forward. But I think you're going to see games where the offensive line dominates run blocking, and maybe the passing game isn't going crazy, and the running game takes over. But the ability to do both is what makes Miami unique here. And again, if you got Cristobal, the only time Cristobal's really had a quarterback that was a top-end player was Herbert. And look, TVD, I'm not trying to compare him to one of the best players in the world, but TVD's a lot closer to Herbert than Anthony Brown, as far as a passer. Right. I think that's fair to say, and certainly more than the other guys they've had at Oregon. So when Cristobal's had that with Herbert, people said he limited Herbert in certain respects. But if you look at the Oregon's offense that year, they were outstanding statistically, and they won 12 games with balance, the ability to run and pass. So I think Miami today was a passing day. The other one was a running day. It's going to change from week to week, but the ability to do both, you have to feel very confident in their ability to do that because you have just a special offensive line.
Shout out to the 400 plus that are on the live right now. I think this is the first time, D, that we've ever had 400 plus on here. For those who weren't on here in the beginning, and I see some comments as well, D, from what you know on Kam Kinchens, it seems like he should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just going off what Cristobal has said publicly and then talking to some people, kind of closer to the player side of things. And everybody seems to think that, the worst was averted. Obviously a serious situation, but something that can be, they can bounce back from. And that was, I think, everybody's biggest concern or thought coming out of the game, because you worry about that with anybody. But a guy like this who is exactly what you want as a representative of your school. You want him to have good things in life because he's worked hard. And shoot, I mean, this game alone, before he got hurt, he was on some Ed Reed stuff, and so the way you just knew he was going to make a play, and he did. Made 2 with the fumble recovery, which is not a gimme fumble. It didn't bounce right into his hands. He went and got it, and then the interception. So, we weren't even going to do this podcast, unless we got some good news on Kinchens. So just great news, and makes everything, brings a light to everything for him to be okay.
Is the ACC back, man?
Here's what I'll say about the ACC, and I've been saying it. The best quarterbacks in the country are in the ACC. They have been for really 5 years now, okay? TBD. Drake May, who to me is the best quarterback in the country.
I've been telling you about Riley Leonard for almost 3 years now.
Riley Leonard is a tremendous multi-sport stud. Jordan Travis, again, sometimes when I see my old posts get bumped, I get nervous. But when I see my Jordan Travis takes from 2017, I feel pretty good because I always thought the guy was a special talent, baseball player, big arm, a lot of upside. Took some time with him, but he ended up being a special player. Hate to say it, but it's true. So yeah, Leonard, Travis, TVD, May. The kid from NC State is pretty good. There's some really, really good quarterbacks in the ACC every single year, and I think people are starting to realize that, because that was what's the meme? They're supposed to be SEC. Those DBs,
the Western Kentucky linebacker,
to be SEC, and TVD treated them like. I mean, TVD's stat line in this game was like your Bethune stat line. I mean, you have 5 touchdowns, 1 dropped, would have been 6, and take away the drops. How many passes did TVD miss? He missed one for Restrepo, which was the right read. They blitzed, and he threw it at the blitz to Restrepo, and just an off-target pass. Other than that, I can't think of too many throws he missed at all. Can you?
No, I mean, I'm excited to talk to the scouts the next few days because, and I was texting you earlier this week, D, that this was probably the biggest game of his career in terms of the scouts were very high on him coming into last season. Last year was not great, but the scouts also take into account what was going on coaching wise and what was going on with the transition. So they don't hold it against him too much.
Yeah,
Last week, he has a good game, but it's not you're not playing a team with NFL talent. So this was really the one that they have to put under the microscope. And man, did he deliver to the naked eye? Now let's see what the scouts say. But like you said, I don't know what passes he missed. I think the athleticism is going to be the differentiating factor for him compared to maybe some of these other guys who we see, because he can't move the same way these other guys do. But the arm talent is off the charts.
And I'm glad you brought that up. So look, Drake May, Caleb Williams, as far as movement, that's a different category. We get that. But the play to Jacoby George, the first touchdown to George, was a very athletic play where he threw against his body. The screen to Restrepo, again, I did not rewatch this game. This is all just from the game, watching it live. But there was a play where Restrepo had a long screen pass, and they came right in his face, and he had to make a very athletic sidearm throw that, if he did not make the throw the way he made it with the time that he made it, it would not have been that long screen. So little subtle athletic things like that he can do. I thought there was another play where, he ended up scrambling for maybe like a loss of 1, but it could have been a loss of 10, and he got away from the defensive end. I think TVD's athleticism is underrated. You look at his high school shuttle, he was a 4.2 shuttle guy verified at that big body. He was a basketball player, he was a top baseball player in his region, top pitcher in his region, tight end when he first started. So I think TVD has more athleticism than people think. Against a Drake May or Jordan Travis or those kind of guys, no, fine. But, is he more athletic than Kirk Cousins? I think so. More athletic than Tua? I think he's in that category with his size and everything. I don't think he's not a stiff. He's an athlete. He's a golfer. I know you're big on that.
He dropped a golf line in a press conference this week. He said you got to play it as it lies. So yeah, I thought that was funny. But no, he is a better athlete than people give him credit for. But here's the problem: you compare some of these other athletes at that position, and that's what the scouts look at, right? So again, if he puts together a body of work like we saw today, it's not going to be an issue, 1,000%. But as Texas and Bama here, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little. It's 20-16. Texas is up, but they just had a big play. They're down to like the 5-6 yard line of Bama, so they might score. They might score again here. Let's see. It looked like a pick, yeah. So
they should have paid TVD. I mean, thank God we got him. And TVD
by the way, outside of the injury of Kam Kinchens that everyone was worried about, Mesidor and Branson Dean both went down. I don't know if you have any update there, but
no, I don't. I mean, look, it's a physical game. Obviously, two great players with NFL futures. You want them to be okay. Good timing.
Sorry, I know something I found interesting watching College Game Day. Desmond Howard, when he was talking about the game, he pulled up his notes and he said Branson Dean. He didn't know it off the top of his head. This is a guy they're very excited about, twitchy. You can tell the staff is telling everyone about Branson Dean. Jimbo Fisher, you saw in his press conference as well. This is a guy that is vital to the defense's success moving forward.
No question. And Mesidor too. I mean, those are big players.
Yeah.
You want them to be, again, NFL futures, it's like, obviously you want these guys to succeed for the Canes, but when you know that they have life-changing opportunities ahead of them just to get drafted, you just want them to be okay. Very soft part of the schedule coming up with Bethune, Temple, and then Georgia Tech. So if there's potential for rest, that could be a thing. Someone in the
Touchdown
comments,
Texas, by the way.
yeah, someone in the comments mentioned that Cam's mom says he's good. So again, all the news on Cam has just been great since the hit. So it's one of those things where it puts you in perspective because you're like, this could not be any better after this game. Then you see an injury, and it's like it kind of brings you back down. So now to see it hopefully be resolved positive way, it really gives you perspective on these kids' lives and the fact that they're out there risking their lives. It's entertainment, but they're trying to make a future for their families and risking a lot in playing a game like this, a physical game like this. So again, great news on Cam, and he was awesome. Again, him and James Williams were great. James Williams, I mentioned it earlier. I'm glad to see him have a good game because he's someone that gets so much scrutiny, and he brings some of it on himself with the way he does make stupid penalties and maybe can be reckless sometimes with his tackling. But he's got a lot of talent. He's got cares a lot about the Canes and cares a lot about playing good. And he's been playing since day one. So it's not like he's been, talk about 5 stars that are disappointed. This guy's been playing, making tackles. Not always the best, but he's been playing, and you'd love to see him have a big year. One other guy I want to mention, this is just totally off the radar, but Jaden Harris. Jaden Davis we talked about, but Jaden Harris had a beautiful tackle on special teams. Malik Bryan also. I like to see guys flashing on special teams. Those two jumped out.
The big picture here, Mario Cristobal, first signature win at Miami. We won 5-7 last year. Winning the first game against Miami, Ohio is not going to do anything to move the needle. This is a big one, and moving forward, what do you think this really signifies?
A lot. It's bigger than what, again, unranked team playing a 22 team. On paper doesn't excite you. The way these programs poured into them, the football teams, and expecting to see results, it's bigger than just one win. And from a Cristobal standpoint, it answered a lot of questions about opening up the offense. How many times we hear caveman football with Cristobal? Didn't look like caveman football to me. I saw a very dynamic offense against an SEC defense with a quarterback that was eating. If I'm watching that game as a quarterback, if I'm watching that game as a receiver, I love what I see. Validation of his approach to the trenches. He said he was going to build an offensive line that was elite. He has done that. That's done. He said he was going to make us a tougher tackling team. He said we got knocked back too much last year. How many times did Texas A&M get extra yards on us just by running us over or breaking a tackle? They put him down. So a lot of things he said, and then talent level. This team, Texas A&M, has been paying an extreme amount of money for players, and they've gotten a lot of 5-star players. But if you ask just a random person, watch this game, who's the more talented team? Miami's the more talented team. They look better.
Well, and we know Jimbo is a heck of a coach. So, he's a top 5, top 7 coach in the country.
Yeah, he's $10 million a year.
Yeah.
So this was for Mario, and you heard him in the post game, right? You could tell he was relieved about Kinchens, and then you could also just tell he was just so relieved. He 5 straight home losses, really bad ones. Yeah. So to win a game like this in this fashion, he might have doubted himself. I know he's got a lot of confidence. We saw him recently, and he seemed very confident. But
there's a question here about Leonard Taylor. I saw Leonard Taylor get in the backfield. I saw him get a good amount of snaps today. He didn't quite take the handoff, but there was a play that he was 3-4 yards in the backfield and really affected the play.
Yeah, and look, they say he's gained weight. He's trying to gain weight. He's trying to be stronger. Is it all good weight? I'm not a nutritionist. I haven't seen him up close, but he's there. He's playing, and we're going to need Leonard Taylor over the course of the season. I think he's going to make a lot of big plays. It's interesting. We have not had a lot of sacks the first 2 weeks for a team that I expected to be a top 10 sack team again. But there's a lot of pressure, a lot of quarterbacks being hit. That usually balances out over the course of the year. They'll have a game, where maybe Leonard Taylor gets 3 sacks or something, like I guess at Virginia or whatever, one of these teams.
Listen, people get so caught up in the sack numbers and the tackle for loss numbers. It's about disruption. There was a lot of disruption up front, albeit some of it was brought by the blitz pressure that Guidry was disguising, bringing guys off the edge. But it's more than just the sack numbers.
Yeah. Look, Bain was out there getting pressure. Harvey got some pressure. I mean, look, Wegman, whatever his name is, he's not going to be feeling great tomorrow physically. I think the guy's a stud. I'm super impressed with him, but he got hit a lot. In fact, that's why I like him, because he was able to get up. But he was getting up a lot. He did not have a clean game physically. He got hit a lot. Some of it was blitzing. Some of it was, just pressure. He was moved off his spot a few times. I saw Hunt got in there a couple times to force him to move. So maybe he's stepping up and getting some yards, but he's not sitting there comfortably in the pocket and spreading the ball like what you saw with TVD. I mean, that was not the same. Those two things were not the same as far as their ability to sit there, not move, scan the field. How many times did you see Wegman sit there, scan the field, and deliver after 5 seconds? That didn't happen. TVD, that was every time he dropped back.
Like and subscribe, Canes fans. Like this video and subscribe to our channel if you aren't already. We got 439 on here right now, D. So I think that's a record to this point. So appreciate everyone who's on here right now. Try to answer any questions coming in here on the comments. So send them in. But I mean, and the fans, I think, showed out. Right. I mean, there was some rain for the hour plus before the game, but I think fans showed out pretty well. Not a lot of A&M fans.
No, Herbstreit said there'd be more A&M fans than Miami fans. That was totally wrong. The A&M fans were quiet. Even when they were doing good, you couldn't hear them. The Miami fans, they were loud. I think what you'll see is now there's a lot of fence sitters that, and I don't blame them. Obviously, I'm there every game. I'm a diehard. But there's people that said, hey, I went to – shout out to Joe Sosa. Appreciate you. And by the way, someone else I wanted to shout out earlier.
Nick.
And then also who else do we want to shout out here? Anyways, I'll look for a while I'm talking. But there was Eric Cooks. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you. So there was not a Texas A&M presence there. It was a Miami presence at the game. And – it was loud. I think a lot of fence sitters that were disillusioned by what's happened over the past 20 years, and certainly last year. Now they can feel comfortable coming back. I've had a lot of people hit me up, like, now I'm going to buy my tickets again. So I think you're going to see a fuller stadium. But the ones that were rowdy, Texas A&M, I went to College Station last year. Not the loudest fan base in the world, despite the 12th man and all that. They're very passionate and they support their team, but it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a square.
Corny. Very corny. The whole male cheerleader thing I just didn't get. I was talking to some very cordial A&M fans next to me, and I told them, dude, I respect you guys, but I just don't get this male cheerleader thing. And they said, look, it's a 200-year tradition. I don't care, man. You got to get some female cheerleaders. That's just my take on it. But that's a whole nother story. I mean, looking ahead here, D, short week, obviously with Bethune coming up. You don't want these guys to get too, ahead of themselves. You still got a lot. TVD, I think, like you said, he that last touchdown, he wasn't really getting all too hyped up about it. That's his personality. I was listening on the way home in the interview with Don Bailey Jr. in the locker room, and he said, look, we still have a lot of work to do. This is a big win, but got a lot of games ahead of us. So looking ahead, I mean, what are you looking for these next few weeks that are games you should win?
Well, for Bethune, it's a short week, and this is a very physical game. Messidor, Fletcher, Dean, obviously Cam. So you want to get out of Bethune healthy, and I don't think you want your guys to play too much. You want to see the youngsters play that game and do their thing. I don't think there's anything to prove with Bethune, like maybe in the past where you really had to show that you were doing stuff. I think they've proven a lot before they play Bethune. It's not the opening game. So get through it healthy. Get your young guys on the field. Get your quarterbacks in there. I know they want to redshirt both of them if possible. We'll see how that works. That's going to be very interesting to watch. But stay healthy. Get your young guys in. Let's see what Malik Bryant does at linebacker, or Popo, Bobby Washington. Let's see what some of these young defensive linemen do. Josh Horton, right? That's the kind of thing I want to see this week. Running back wise, maybe Chris Johnson. Can he get going? He missed a lot of camp. Can he have his Isaiah Horton moment, missing of camp? And then, Don Vaughn, great point. Clean up the penalties. That's something that you could work on even against a team like Bethune. Clean up the penalties, clean up the special teams, just being sharp, and then hopefully staying healthy, getting your guys rest. You get through that game healthy, now you got a whole basically week and a half to heal. So that's going to be fun to see.
D, something I found interesting was I feel like there was less rotations at a lot of the spots. I mean, the coaches were just playing the guys that they really feel like are the guys, right? So that's not something we've seen either the last 10 years. There's been a lot of rotations at every spot, it feels like. And it was more like, look, we know who our guys are. If we need to, spell them, give them a breather, then we'll do that. But it seemed like a lot of the same guys were playing.
Yeah, look, defensive line, that's a position you always rotate. But when you look at Alabama or Georgia, they don't rotate just to rotate. If they have a stud that they want to play because they just have an overflow of studs, they'll play them. But they don't rotate just to rotate. I remember at one point we were rotating offensive linemen all the time in a way that just made no sense. I think that's kind of gone. When they did rotate, like with a Corey Flagg, he made some nice plays.
Flagg had a big play, man. Shout out to him. I honestly thought of when he made that play, I thought of everyone on the message boards who, doesn't love him, but man, that's valuable depth on this team.
And he does everything right.
Yeah.
I will never get down on players who do everything right. I don't get down on players that much anyways, because I could never be in their shoes with the schedule they have and the talent and the things they do. So I'm not really one to bash players anyways, but I have a soft spot for the guys that do everything right. So when I see guys getting dinged because they don't look perfect when they have done everything right, it's frustrating. With DJ Ivy, our buddy, we put in that category. Robert Knowles was one, glad he had a great senior year. Flagg is kind of another one of those. Flagg has been productive. He's played. He is part of the solution. Physically, no, but in terms of the way he approaches the game, and like you said, valuable depth. So happy to see a guy like, him, Jaden Davis, Daryl Porter, guys that they don't look like to Corey Couch, guys that maybe don't look Restrepo, you could throw in that category. They're not going to win the beauty pageant, but they're guys that do the things right and have put in a lot of time, and you like to see them get rewarded with a good game.
Any last thoughts here, D, before we close shop? I mean, like you said, I appreciate everyone who came up to us, who showed love, appreciate everyone who watches the show and likes and subscribes and is just on the website in general.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. That was awesome meeting people. Want to keep doing that. I might be late next week because I got my kids' baseball game. I'm hoping it gets rained out. But shout out to everybody saying hi and supporting. And listen, tell your friends. We're putting out content at a higher rate. The team is doing its part. This thing's about to take off on the field, off the field, the community, the content, the interaction, really going to take off. And again, appreciate everybody that gave super chats and they participated. Really appreciate everyone. It's a great time to be a Canes fan. We've been paying our dues for a long time. Now it's time to reap the rewards, and today is one of them. So enjoy.
Let's watch the end of this Texas and Bama game, man. It's going to be an interesting one.
Hey, let's see how these second-rate programs look. All right, man.
Go Canes. Appreciate everyone who's been on here. Have a good night.